I would like to introduce our next speaker. She is head of HR and a co-founder at the candidate engagement website, Intern. And she's going to be talking to us about how you can add a Gen Z filter to your leadership style. Please give a warm welcome to Mirtill Megyeri.
Hi, everyone. Actually, it's quite nostalgic for me to be here at this building today because last time when I was here, that was 10 years ago, I was working as an intern at the British Embassy's reception. And imagine my responsibility was to take care for the voter of Prince Charles. Yeah? We saved his voter. This voter was actually coming straight from the Scottish mountain springs, and with 2 bodyguards, we served his room temperature water. So that happened actually 10 years ago, in 2010, and that is the year when the last Z generation kids born. And the Z generation people are already on the labor market. And they are bringing the highest turnover rate ever. Last year, it was recorded that over 73% of Z generation employees quit their jobs within a year because they just felt like their employer or the position did not meet their expectations. I can imagine that you're thinking now about a lot of things, especially related to that chart. I'm just showing to you that how much extra effort, financial and human capital investment do you have to invest to these new joiners to the labor market, and will ever all this hard work pay off before they quit? And unfortunately, I do not have a secret source to tell you that you can solve it immediately or help you to keep these young people forever. But we do have a technique that might help you to get over quite quickly the so-called death valley of cumulative net benefit of your new joiner employees and minimize the loss they can mean to your organization, and even extend their stay at your organization into 3 years. And I'm Mirtill, as I was introduced. I'm one of the co-founders of Intern, which is early career we can say it's an early career management and early career lifecycle management platform for the next generation of employees. And I would like to just introduce very briefly my co-founder partner, Attila, who was organizing the first 6 stretch conferences. So thank you, Attila, for this event as well, and for your work, and make it possible to stand here now and share practices on the stage of the conference. So we created a job site which really replies the needs and demands of the next generation of employees and helps companies to understand them better. 3 years ago, when we were thinking about to start the job site, raised the question among many, many leaders whether are they really prepared to attract, understand, engage, motivate, and most of all, lead the next generation of future employees. And you know what? The answers all around us were big, fat no's. 3 years ago, leaders didn't even think about Z generation. They were still concerned about millennials, and we really felt that we have to do something. So we created Intern.com to building the missing bridge between the next generation of employees and their future employers. And when we started to build up and design Intern, we realized that the most important thing to create a platform for that generation is to understand their reality. They were born after 1995, which is the commercial appearance of internet. They are the real digital natives, so for them it's the most natural thing to open their smartphones 100 times a day, juggle 5 screens at the same time, and be non-stop connectivity to other people all around the world. So we conducted researches. We wanted to learn the most about them. We wanted to understand how do they perceive the world, how do they process information, and how can their attention grabbed. And thanks to our investigations in 2 years, over 1,500 companies using our site, and we helped over 100,000 young job seekers to find their jobs. But we haven't stopped. we continuously work on to helping companies to understand better the next generation of employees. Last year, we just conducted a country-wide research, and we talked to and asked more than 5,000 young people about their preferences related to the perfect and ideal leaders and employers. And here you can see the most important outcomes of the survey. You can take pictures and you can find these slides later on. But besides the facts and the outputs of the research, we understood two very, very important things. The first is that you really should look behind this data from a Z-generational point of view. The only way to be able to understand what this fact really means, to understand their reality. And the second thing is to be able to interpret these facts to leaders of different previous generations, and help them to instantly transform the leadership style based on these facts. So right now, I would like to ask you all to put on a Z generation filter, and let me explain you, from a very different point of view, 5 quite well-known facts about Generation Z. And also, let me help you to interpret in a way which can help you to immediately add some new threats and hints to your leadership style. First thing, communication. So we know that these guys are able to juggle 5 screens at the same time. They are connected all the time. They are using at least 8 social media sites. There are 3 very important things you should consider when it comes to communicating to these guys. The first thing, that in their eyes, communication is a truly horizontal system in which everyone, anytime, everywhere is available without any permission. So for them, it's so hard to understand why they cannot talk to anyone when they would like to. Why do you have to put you or other colleagues on a carbon copy to CC to an email? Or why do they have to follow those traditional corporate communication silos? The second thing is that their attention span changed. It has changed a lot. It's been told their attention span is from 3 to 5 seconds, which is officially below the attention span of a goldfish. And that is because they are able to process information super quickly. Because of the simultaneous screen usage and scrolling news feeds, they are able to filter information in seconds, and they can decide whether they would like to deal with an information or not. So sending out never-ending emails and newsletters and meetings without any reason just won't working for them. So if you would like to communicate something, just be really straightforward to the point and take the trouble to explain them the reason behind the process or a task, because they will challenge you anyway, other ways. And the third thing is that don't underestimate their multitasking skills. It happened to me 2 years ago that I was working with a 19-year-old guy. He was one of our interns. And in the morning, in a one-on-one session, Monday morning, I explained to him what kind of tasks I would like him to do, why are those tasks important, etc., etc. It was basically database management and customer support. And after the fifth minute, when I was talking to him and he was doing something on his smartphone, I raised my voice and told him, "Benjamin, I'm talking to you. Please give me your undivided attention, because right now I have time for you. You can ask me all the questions you would like to do, but now it's our time." And he turned to me and he told me, "I'm already done with everything you told me to do." So that was the time when I realized that they are operating and working in a really different way. And after that, I'll let him to do whatever he wanted to do because he was quite dumb. The second thing is knowledge. Z generation will be the most educated generation in terms of earning the most higher education degrees, but they believe the most in the power of self-education and self-learning. So it is really in their DNA to disrupt the traditional things because they have an experience about comparing traditional ways to more effective ones and alternative ways of doing things. So when you tell to a Z generation colleague that you're doing things because that's the way how they have to be done, because that's how you're doing it, they will just challenge you. And not because they are disrespectful, but because this is really in their DNA to challenge the status quo, to challenge the things that are not working, because this is embedded into our education and they were raised in this system. And another important thing, that in their eyes, seniority is not even close to meritocracy. So just because you spend a lot of time within an organization or even within a special field of profession, they won't respect you just because of that. You have to show more. And in previous speeches, we heard about the coaching style of leadership and mentoring style of leadership, and that is what they really need. They would like to have answers. They would like to have sometimes undivided attention. They would like to have support. They would like to talk through things, and they would like to be handled as partners. And it's not easy to do, and it takes a lot of effort, but it will pay off sooner than you can imagine. Wage. Almost in every country, Z generation fresh graduates has the highest salary expectations, which is almost everywhere higher than the average wage at the countries. The thing is that for them, a competitive salary is a basic requirement. It's defaulting. I just would like to quote a saying that we use quite often, that baby boomers being loyal to their employers, quite often for a lifetime. X-generation people are loyal to their careers, to the professional field they choose. Y-generation millennials are loyal to their own self-realization, and sometimes they change career. And Z-generation, at the moment, is loyal to their wallet. And to understand this assumption, I would like to ask you again to put on the Z generation filter and understand their reality. At the time when they were stepping to the labor market, at least in our region and Hungary, a general economic growth described the market, when salary spiral and just increasing wages were present everywhere. So at a time when even for the dumbest and easiest student job, it's not impossible to get as much as for an experienced employee's full-time position. It's just not working to exemplify with all times when you were working as a volunteer and tell them that they should be happy to working for you and at the company, because it's just not their reality. It doesn't make sense for them. And of course, there are those online sites when they can compare the wages and they can rate companies, so it's just a different reality. But we had this survey I told you about. We conducted last year, and this research, and it was outlined that out of 14 different factors that Z generation is seeking at a company, a high salary is only the fifth, is the fifth least important. So there are 9 things which are more important for them. And to make it easier for you to understand, so it's a basic expectation for them to have that salary. But if you can show more, if you can be competitive by differentiating yourself with different benefits and employer values, then you can engage them. One thing that you can use is social impact. They are the most concerned generation about social issues. 9 out of 10 Z generation youth believe that they have to do something to change the world, to make it a better place. And if you think about that, they were born and raised among the phenomena of terrorism, global warming, migration, social inequalities, lack of diversity. You can probably understand that they have the feeling that they have to change those things that previous generations failed to do. So they are real doers. Unlike the previous millennial generation, which is more like a dreamer, they're doers. And if you would like to earn respect, you would like to have these people on board, you should show something. 94% of Z generational youth told us that they would like to join a company which has a credible social responsibility compared to companies which can offer other benefits. So besides communicating about your social responsibility, be careful, because they have the highest bullshit filter. So they can know if you're not that credible, or if it's only PR or communications. They would like to see social responsibility as a hard-baked thing to your everyday operations, to your business model, as in the case of Tom's, or to your producing techniques, standing up for fair trade, you're against for child labor, or just rejecting to use toxic materials. And they can learn about, they find information about you. So it's important to be credible. But also important to build those things that you're proud of to your employer value proposition and to your employer brand. That is the time when employer brand is not about bullshitting, not about just slogans and big words, but about real actions that you're taking and that really can attract these young people. And last but not least, the entrepreneurial mindset. Over 55% of Z generation in Hungary, and basically the same ratio all over the world, said that they would like to become entrepreneurs one day. And this is because of two things. On one hand, they have this doer attitude I just mentioned. They feel that they have to do things. They have to change the world. If they won't do that, no one will do that. So they have this doer attitude. On the other hand, because their childhood and early adulthood was so much influenced by startuppers, success stories all around them. So when they started to think about how they would like to see their future and what kind of career path would they like to have, these success stories just had a huge impact on their visions. We will see later on how many Z generation will finally become entrepreneurs, because still X generation is the leader in that field. But there are things that you can do already to help them feel comfortable and feel that they can use these entrepreneurial motivations. I'll leave with these entrepreneurial motivations. On one hand, you can allocate a certain ratio of the working hours, as for example, Google did, or still does, to do things they would like to do, to work on side projects, just self-realize themselves. Yeah, that's how we know Slack, Twitter, and other very well-known brands and products born. But on the other hand, and what is more important, that you can create internal success stories, internal influentials. I'm sure in all of your organizations, there are people who can be role models to these Z generation youth, who went over a certain career path within your organization, step by step, and who could realize themselves and still feel happy and satisfied working for your company. So work with these stories, use storytelling. They really go for credible things. So use the tool, communication tool of storytelling, define these people, and let your new joiners to meet these success stories in person, even during the candidate experience, and then during the onboarding, and then later on. I hope at least our technique was a little bit useful for you today. And I know it's a quite simple thing, but not that easy to do that. So I just would like to suggest you to put on that Z generational filter when you feel struggle to engage and retain your next generation of employees. Understand that they have a different reality. Collect information about them, talk to them, understand them better. Approach these data from their point of view, and then let this information and data transform your everyday operations from step by step. That's how you can minimize the lost cumulative net benefit of hiring Z generation people. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mirtill. Let's just jump into the questions straight ahead. The number one question is actually something that came up to me as well. Like, what are the key differences between millennials and Gen Z?
as I mentioned a few things about them, Gen Zs are doers. They really would like to change the world, and the millennials were actually the last generation who were dreamt about changing the world. Generation Y was the one which was getting older and becoming adult during a transformation time. So they born in the analog era and then become adults during this digital world. And they are the ones who actually first enjoyed all the opportunities and benefits of globalization. And first they lost because of these tremendous opportunities around them. And they are still sometimes searching themselves. And the economic crisis in 2008 also affected them when they first stepped into the market. So they were so ambitious, they felt that they have the work, they are the kids of the globalization, but then because of the crisis, many of them lost their jobs, or their parents lost their jobs, and the financial problems came. So they are different, and the Z generational youth are more conscious, they're more comfortable with the digital world and with all the things that the last decade provided.
Now that you mentioned the crisis, let's talk money. So there's a question saying salary is not important for Gen Z, but competitive salary is basic for them. So how does that add up?
Yeah, I would like to elaborate more on that, and I'm sorry if it was not enough clear. So competitive salary is a basic. If they don't get it, they won't go to you. But there are more companies on the market who are offering competitive salary, and they won't choose the highest salary if you can show them different things. But you really should accept that they would like to work for money, and at the beginning they do not consider that it's an investment for the future. Because when they step into the labor market as student workers, they earn a lot of money. Really, as student workers, in many cases, they get more money than after in a professional internship. And that's why they have a general competitive salary expectation, but they won't choose the highest if you can show more.
And do you think that these Gen Z characteristics are true for all the countries, so like the US and Belarus, and here's China and Germany as examples? So are they alike?
No, that was actually an overview about Generation Z and how to approach them. Each and every country is different. We all have this social, cultural, historical backgrounds, but there are threats that are similar. For example, that this is the most educated generation on the world, and as well that they are using the most tools for self-learning. And because of globalization, they are just getting closer and closer to each other. But that's why I really suggest you to take the trouble and talk to your people, because even within a country, at different organizations, each generation people are different. Yeah.
I love the next question because it stretches to the future. Will Gen Z stay like this, as you mentioned, or is it because they are too young and motivational factors are shifting later in life? So are they going to change?
Actually, yeah, there are two things that are describing generations, two parallel things. One thing is that all generations are influenced by all those socio-cultural, historical, economical events that describe a certain period of time. That is one thing, and of course, digitalization, for example, has a huge impact on how Z generation perceive the world. But on the other hand, there is another line which we all have in our lives, and it is related to the different periods of our personal lives. And of course, this will change. Now they are very young. They are somehow similar to the millennials at the time, 10, 15 years ago when they stepped into the labor market. And another thing is that all the great changes in the world, as it's said by a sociologist, were brought by different generations, by the successor generations who wanted to change the status quo. So in a way, there is nothing special about Z generation, but there are very important circumstances which we really should consider. And one of them is the digitalization that really affected their early adulthood.
And we have time for one last question, and I think I want to ask the question that was on earlier that said, like, if I don't use social media, did I lose Gen Z then? So that disappeared in the time being.
Actually, it also depends on your target audience. We researched different students from different field of studies, and they are not using equally as much social media sites, but they are online. So you really should find the channels which they are using. We're working on that as well to be able to target very specifically those people who are not present on social media or just put on all the ad blocks, but they are on some other, for example, on Reddit and on other sites which you really should use and consider and think about it. But again, talk to your interns, talk to your fresh graduates and ask them where are they now, and try to be present on that site.
Mirtill, thank you so much. We really appreciated having you here, and please find her. There are many great questions that we didn't have time for today. Here's a little something from us. Thank you so much. Thank you.